What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel and to this review of Chordjam, the latest plugin from Audiomodern. And the good people at Audiomodern reached out to me to test this plugin out, and I was extremely excited for the opportunity just because if you've been following my channel, you've seen that I did a review of their filter plugin, the free one that they put out about a year ago, and I felt that it was an amazing plugin. And to top it all off, it was a free one. So when I heard that they're putting out a plugin that lets you create chords off of single notes, I was intrigued and couldn't wait to get my hands on it and test it out. This plugin offers quite a lot of features, and I'll go through all of them, but in a way, whatever I do will just scratch the surface because you can do so much with this amazing plugin. But let's start from the top and then work towards the bottom. At the top of the page, you have the reset button, which literally just brings you back to the default settings. You have the tempo, and this is also a standalone, so you can tweak that. As you can see now, I can't really do that because it's synced to Reaper's BPM here, which is fine. You have an undo button, but again, nothing has happened so far, so that will do nothing. Panic, that's gonna stop it in case you end up feedbacking somehow, and we'll see how that might be possible depending on the sound you're going for. You do have these three pads here to save presets, and this is quite cool. We'll get to that as well. The basic settings, you can assign a lot of triggers here, MIDI mapping, and we'll see that being useful when we go to this funky pad section. And obviously you have these nifty little controls to make the interface bigger, and this is actually way more fun. It's scalable. So once we're done with that, we get into the meat of things, and first button here that is important is the main note, your root note of whatever you're trying to do. I'm actually gonna switch this to E. I'm originally a guitar player, and we all know that we love our E's. And now we get into something that Audiomodern is known for, namely the randomizing features. And this first button here randomizes the pitch, that original root note of the chord. So if you're really uninspired, you can just press that and see what happens. You also have this pretty cool feature here where you input something and it tells you what key it is. I won't be needing that today. Then the scale type, and you have a bajillion different scale types here, and I'm just gonna go for, let's say, pentatonic minor. I kind of like that flavor. But of course you also have the randomizing feature here as well, so you press this button and it just goes through some of these. You never know what's gonna happen, so might be worth trying it out. Enigmatic, something cool might come out of that. I'll just keep it to pentatonic minor, and this button here randomizes it in a way that surprises you, so it's not dependent on you hitting the chord, which is what this button does. It's literally just picking one at random for you, which is pretty cool. But I'm gonna stick to my original pentatonic minor and see what happens then. This big button here randomizes everything, so I'm not gonna press it. I'll press it maybe towards the end just to see what happens, but it just literally randomizes every setting here. We move on to the octave. We can change this, so from here it can go up or down. And then this is also pretty cool. This is probably the coolest bit of this section, at least. You can choose the type of chord, the main type of chord that you want to go for. So if we're going for E, well, it went down with my randomizing. If we want to do something simple, we're going to keep it in E. I went for minor pentatonic, and let's make it a bit more spicy. So we won't go just for the minor scale, we'll go for minor 7, and we get this. And then it's gonna assign that type of chord to the rest of the notes that I play. But as you can see here, something bizarre is happening just because I have minor pentatonic engaged, so some of the notes that were supposed to be in those minor 7 notes aren't there. Let's switch this to natural minor and see what happens. the chords are what you'd expect. But I'm gonna go back to pentatonic minor because I like that flavor. And at the end here, you again have the randomizer button, the variety that you had here, and then this nifty one where you press and something will eventually happen. And coming back to this big knob here, this button here, you do have some smaller variations of that, and as you can see, it's a nod to dices, so 5, 2, 3, and 4. And these buttons randomize sections. So this is the macro randomizer, and these are micro ones. So in small pockets of voices, velocity, and arpeggio time or sync, these will get randomized in case you want to just find inspiration in the moment. And here we have voices. So we have up to 5 voices. This one's grayed out. I can't actually do anything with it because I have minor 7, but if I go to something more complex, you'll see that it comes back. You can do quite interesting things with this. So for instance, I'm on E minor 7. So technically the note should be E, G, D, and E, but let's assume I don't want this G. And it becomes a sort of open E. You can't really say if it's major or minor because the third is missing. You can take out the 5th. Or the 7th, and you get this sort of E minor, just normal E minor. So that's pretty cool. But you can also change the pitch of these. So maybe you want the upper note and the lower one to be an octave above where they initially started. And maybe you want that G to be lower, so you create a sort of first inversion of this minor 7 chord. Or a second inversion. So that's quite cool. And what you could also do is randomize it from here. So whenever you press, it just loops it in a way that goes through all of them. And you also have a reset button, which is quite cool. So I kind of like this voicing, but I'm probably going to try this. I like that. I'm going to keep it like that, and I'm going to lock it. Then in the velocity, this is quite cool because obviously now, whatever I do, it's going to be at the same volume. So I can actually tweak these 4 notes coming in. First of all, let's say we do it kind of at that velocity, and then let's say I kind of want to have the top one a bit more prominent. So you can do that. You of course can randomize it. And this is quite cool because you can bring an element of humanity back into this. Of course, if you really like one voicing, and the cool thing about this is if you engage this button and you press a random button, nothing happens. If it's not engaged, then it kind of randomizes everything. You press that and the button will stop working, and this happens on all of them. So when you see this key symbol, that's the kind of limitation it will impose on these brackets here. Then what you could also do is limit, say I only want them, I don't want the extremes of either of this, so everything is going to happen here. So if I do this, it's only gonna loop it within that specific velocity range. So if I go to the extremes, it's gonna pick stuff from all over. Again, this makes it so that you can't randomize it, and then you're back here. So I actually do like the softest one. I'll go to mid, and then over here, something like this perhaps, a bit random, but I like that. Then the time function works as a sort of pair to this. So obviously this makes it a bit more human just because you have different velocities on each finger that's playing those voices, but you also have different times when those voices kick in. So you again have this slider here that limits how much you want it. So obviously you don't want it to go too far off, because then it's going to take some time for that note to actually kick in. But let's assume we're going for something like this. You can even slide your arpeggiator like this. Exaggerate it a bit. which is quite cool. And these do exactly the same like there. You also have an arp, so you literally just and maybe for something like this, let's go for a proper minor. And you can go either just up or just down, up and down, down and up, or all, which is basically just re-triggering the whole chord at this rate. You can add a bit of a swing to it. So let's say I'm doing up and down and add a bit of swing. Quite cool. And again, you have this function here, so you can kind of change the rate whenever you play it, which can have its use. And then we also have the sync button here, so you can, instead of just putting these random values, presumably in milliseconds, you can actually divide it into proper subdivisions. So that can be something really cool, but I'm just gonna keep it at this and move on to the second half of the plugin, which is the sequencer, which now is off, and then it's gonna be back on. So I can play a chord and click on one of these, and let's say I play another one here and another one here, and I hit play. And the kick is actually a sample. It's not coming from Chordjam. And I can then extend it. Let's see what that sounds like. So we have that, and you can easily move things around and do all of this crazy stuff here. And these are pretty cool because you can assign some chords here. So obviously you have C, F, G, but we're in E. So this would be the equivalent of E, A, and B. But let's, for the sake of it, go to C for simplicity's sake, and let's see what happens. And let's go to major. And make sure to make these major as well. But you can actually try some of these as well. And just assign them like that. And let's just say I'm happy with this progression. Sounds pretty cool. And obviously if you want to fancy a different one, you can try that and just hit on one. Let's say I like that one. Maybe I don't like that one. I like that one, so I'll keep it. And the way to actually add it to this robot lane, so you can manually add it here, but if you want it to be randomly generated, and that's why you have this robot symbol, you go here and pick a pattern. Let's say today I'm feeling a bit indie. I'll go for that one, and then blam, you have these here. It is a bit underwhelming, so I'm gonna randomize this. So let's say we have E minor and C major. That should sound pretty cool. It is a bit too nice, so let's go for minor 7 and major 7. And let's also change the octave below. That sounds pretty cool. And what's cool about this, and this can be done both on the manual one and this other one, and this is just a delete if you want to take something out, is you edit individual ones. So for instance, on this one, if I don't want that note to be there, I'll just move it down. And then if I click on this one, as you can see, it's already up. So you can individually change voicings, and this is quite amazing because, for instance, if you play stuff on the guitar, the voicing will be slightly different. Especially, for instance, if you play in an open position, a G chord will be completely different to a D chord in terms of the actual fingering and the way the chord actually sounds because of the open strings. Whereas on the piano, a G major and an A major are identical in that sense. So having something like this means that you add just a bit more realism to the equation. So what we can do now is I can move it slightly if I wanted to start on a slight offbeat. But I don't. I like that. You can obviously move things around like that. So for instance, if I really do want this to be on the beat, I can do it. Which is nice. And a cool thing that you can do is actually do a bit of both. So for instance, here, let's say I E minor, C major, maybe here I'll add an A minor. So I'm gonna play the A minor on the keyboard and add it there. And let's have a listen. So in case you want to modify what you already have, you really like this, but you don't like one chord, you can input it manually, which saves you some tinkering, which is quite cool. And what you could also do is select random here in the presets, and then you'll see this button pop up, and that tells you how many chords there are in each of these progressions. Let's assume the random one is 8, and you can select here how many loops it takes to generate that random sequence. So now it's on 1. So once it finished looping, it added a secondary set of chords. But obviously, if you want to make it more like a song, you can have it on 4 or even more than that and just have a chorus, a bridge, a verse, whatever. So that's actually really useful. And you can also drag your chords here and drag your own sequences here to play around with this, but I don't feel I need it. I think that this does quite enough on that front to satisfy all of my sequencing needs. And then we go into this function here, which is pretty cool because you can click on this, play another one, and then I don't have a pad per se, but if you did have one, then you could just press on these and then you just get the chord without having to actually follow the notes on the keyboard. If you don't like one of these, you can press the clear button and you just clear them. You can save this as a preset for the pad. So if you really love a particular sequence, you can just keep it. You have up until 16 pads, and you also have clear all. And you do have this latch, just if you want to play the chord quantized, that's fine, that's easy to do. Or if you want to have a bit more artistic expression at your fingertips, you can just unlatch it and it's gonna start playing the chord the moment that you press the button. And you've seen from this, you get into this layered way of saving presets here. So you can save the session. Let's say this is session 1, so I can save that. So this is everything connected. You can save the sequences here. Let's say I really like that sequence, I'll save it. And pad as well, you can save this and it just saves everything. And then you can go into specific ones here and just open what you like and what you specifically want for a song or a section of a song. And double clicking on any of those will get you either to here or to the pads, the specific saves that you did in each of these individual ones. This is the plugin. I think it solves a lot of problems when it comes, first of all, to creativity. You often find yourself as a producer in a bit of a rut when it comes to coming up with interesting chord progressions, and music has tended to be a bit more complex in their chord progressions, and there's a lot of 7 chords, a lot of 9 chords. If you listen to some of what Bruno Mars is doing now, it gets a bit funky. And something like this just helps you stay creative. You can obviously do all of this by hand, but instead of worrying about the theory and thinking, oh, should I add that minor 9 there? What is the 9 of that chord? Is it a major 9? Is it an 11 chord? Whatever, you just add something like Chordjam and it kind of does it for you, and you can just set it, forget it, and focus on other more important things in a song. So I definitely recommend you give this a go. It's an amazing plugin, and I will start using it in my own productions. It just solves a lot of problems. And for those wondering, the sound is coming from pigments, so you just route it. You don't actually route it, you don't have to do anything, you just add it to your effects chain and just add a synth afterwards, and it does the job for you. And in terms of CPU use, most of what you're seeing there when I play something is actually coming from here. So 1.1 is actually just pigments. Chordjam is using 0.1. If at all. Sometimes it goes to 0.1, but this just shows you how efficient it is. So you don't have to worry about this clogging up your CPU. It just does the job. You press a button and it plays wonderful chords with cool voices, velocities, and adds a bit of timing flurry at the end to make things a bit more realistic. You don't want everything to sound like a machine, regardless of what this robot here might want you to do. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this video, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.